Welcome back to another episode of Inquiry, a podcast by Project Tech Conferences where we talk about all things related to tech from school to industry. My name is Annie.
And I'm Daniel, and together we are your co-hosts.
For today's episode, we are very honored to have Sana here with us today. Sana strives for diversity and inclusion for women in tech, and she sits on the board for many of the top engineering and IT non-for-profit organizations and associations in North America. She has been shortlisted for Canada's Women in IT Awards in 2019 and currently holds a degree in biomedical and electrical engineering. She works at the federal government of Canada as an IT project manager. Now, for many years, Sana has been recognized for her initiatives, extensive volunteering and extracurricular work, and for her passion in making a difference in the society. She is the co-founder of the very first Women in Tech IT network at her department. She is the secretary for North America Board of ComSoc, the treasurer of the Institute of Electrical and Electronic Engineers, Ottawa section, a director for the Professional Engineers of Ontario, and a board member of many other engineering organizations and associations. Sana also teaches coding for girls that come from underserved families, and she also mentors girls in the Technovations program. Thanks again for joining us, Sana. Would you be able to start off by telling everyone a little bit more about yourself?
Annie, thank you so much for the wonderful introduction. I mean, I couldn't ask for a better way to be welcomed into this session. So thank you so much. And good afternoon, good evening, good morning to everybody who's watching this. So I'm very happy and honored to be here today. Pretty much Annie just, she summarized it, but to add a little more, yes, I work for the federal government of Canada, and I'm very honored to be a part of the federal government. And I have started the very first, I'm one of the co-founders actually for the very first Women in IT in my department. And that has come from a long way, a lot of experience that has kind of allowed me and pushed me to do this wonderful initiative. But as mentioned, I am an IT professional, and I work at the Border Services. So I do work on the database end for travelers, commercials, and whatnot. So yeah, I'm a biomedical and electrical engineer, and I'm part of the Professional Engineering Ontario, and I'm also part of the IEEE. Been part of it as a student. I was the head of the Women in Engineering as a student, and then I became an executive on the Ottawa section, my city, and then now I'm part of the Canada region. So it's really great to be part of such wonderful organizations that do make a difference. I'm currently a professional engineer, so I can sign off things, but my career has been based on not only taking in and learning, but also giving back to the community as much as I can.
That's incredible, and you have such an impressive background. Would you be able to tell us a little bit more about your journey into tech? So how did you first become interested in this field?
So that's a great question. Again, I did biomedical and electrical engineering at Carleton University. And the way that this started was actually in high school. As a kid, I didn't really know what I wanted, but I knew one thing, that I enjoyed those, those little circuits that you kind of like link to create this light bulb. And you're like, oh my God, how did this light bulb just shine up like that? So that's how I got into the electrical side. I really loved those circuits and how like adding every single part of it, every component gets you a light bulb. So that was how I got into the electrical. Whereas my biomedical side in high school, I really used to volunteer a lot, right? So I volunteered in the hospitals, and I was so curious as to how those MRI can see every part of you. What is so special about these? And so being so interested to know more about medical devices and about the electrical side is really what allowed me to go into biomedical and electrical engineering. And from there, I kind of went on and just like, I wanted to know more about tech. I wanted to know, how can I give back to the community, being a woman in tech. So that's how it started as a student, and how I made my way up in my career.
That's wonderful. So speaking of your biomedical and electrical engineering program, how would you say, or what would you say would be the biggest impact your program had on your career?
The biggest impact, I would say the fact that it's so diverse. Biomedical and electrical has software as well. So I was able to work in electrical, I was able to work in biomedical, and I was able to work in software, which is why I ended up in IT. Having that diversity in your field and having that experience where you're able to work in different parts of like different industries allows you to really figure out and nail down what you really want and where you want to go in the future. I did work as a biomedical, I did use the electrical, and I did work as software. And I figured out that my passion is really IT and software. So that's how I figured out how to make my way through to go into being a woman in IT today, an IT professional. So I definitely give a big thank you to my undergrad degree for that, for sure.
Awesome. So, speaking of undergrad and wrapping up your degree, where did you head after graduation?
After graduation, so this is the part where a lot of people, they're like, what do we do, right? I mean, now I'm done. Where do I start? So for me, keeping your options open is the biggest advice I can give to anybody out there. Do not strictly, for instance, again, I'll go back to my degree. I have a biomedical degree, but I don't have to work as a biomedical. I kept my options open. I worked in software, I did testing, and then I did support, right? And then after that, I did a biomedical job. And then after that, I got into government as an IT professional. But keeping my options open was what allowed me really to like know what I want and how kind of pave my way through it. So definitely that's something I would say.
For sure. So, would you actually recommend that students perhaps not limit themselves by signing up for a program that's more kind of software based only?
Absolutely. I think what what I would tell students is definitely go for with something what you're passionate about, but you only know what you're good at and you only know where you would fit is when you try different paths. I'm not saying switch if you love something. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying keep trying until you find what you fit in. Try different fields. Sometimes I know a lot of people who went into their own fields and they ended up hating it. In school, it's completely different than the real world. And I think that's where we're not really highlighting that out a lot. A lot of people assume I did this degree, I'm going to work in this degree, and that'll be the end of it. You got this degree as a kind of key to different jobs. So use that as a way to kind of know what you want and like by trying out different fields and within engineering or within software or whatever your heart desires, for sure.
That's incredible insight. So, did you face any struggles when trying to transition from perhaps a more traditionally biomedical or on the bio side of a degree into more of the project management or IT sector?
I did, especially that I had even though my undergrad was in biomedical, going to biomedical was difficult because I had my experience prior to that all in software. So the way I had to go in and sell myself. I had to go in and say, this is why I'll be good at this job. So again, you go back to the confidence. I did this and I did that, and this is why I'm good at this. And give examples, real life examples of your previous job. But instead of saying software, kind of say, how does that apply to your company? So technically, end of the day, wherever you work, you're kind of applying the same ethics and the same rules, but different products, right? So it was very challenging, but I was able to do it based on, obviously my undergrad has helped and my research in undergrad, such as my fourth year project, but also using the same knowledge that I've gained from the software and the IT side.
Awesome. So you mentioned you did some research in your fourth year undergrad. Could you expand a little on that?
Sure, we actually did an ECG armband, and pretty much you kind of like wherever you go, you get your ECG kind of tested or measured at all times. And we were planning to have that kind of mapped out in your phone app. And it was pretty neat because it actually helps a lot of people if they're shopping out, those elderly who need it, kind of have it attached at all times. Obviously now this is creative, but we're talking about back a couple of years ago and this wasn't really a big thing. So it was pretty cool because you get to use the electrical, the software, right, when you want to code, at the same time, the biomedical side. And really that was the key to a lot of my jobs. The fact that you're able to design, troubleshoot, think outside of the box, have that creativity, talk about your project is definitely the key to getting your foot through the first door after graduation.
Awesome. So speaking of getting kind of your foot into the door, what are some other skills that you would say are required to be kind of successful in the tech industry?
As a woman, for sure, and I've seen that a lot of the young women out there is have confidence. I think there's a lot of lack of confidence, unfortunately, and it's kind of hard to see that because you've done the work, you've done the effort, you can do it, right? You've proved it to yourself. So believe in yourself and have that confidence. Qualifications, you have it, right? You have your degree. You have I've spoken about the fourth year project, which is like a foot through the door. Definitely work on the way that working on your soft skills, know that what you are good at and try to sell that to whoever you're being interviewed by. Know that you're good at, for instance, you're really good at communication. If the job requires communication, speak about that. Speak about how you're good at research. At the same time, confidence speaks more than anything. You're in a job interview, or you're being interviewed in general, having confidence always outshines everything else. So that's pretty much key. Men usually don't have a problem with that. On the other hand, which is great. We should learn from them, but it's something that I've seen over the years interviewing other students and being interviewed myself. And I'm guilty because I have had low confidence for a while, and I've kind of learned to believe in myself and to seek opportunities, even if they are outside my comfort zone. So this is key for all the students. Seek opportunities, look at your qualifications, what you're good at, and focus on these in the interviews.
Awesome. Now, would you say that your program would somewhat limit you in the spectrum of jobs that you're open or available to apply to?
Not really. I find it personally a big myth. You can't have, say, a business degree and apply to civil engineering job. But that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying being a biomedical and electrical engineer, I got into software because I had software courses. Sometimes it's those courses that you take at school that get you into something else. I have a friend who had a business minor and an engineering degree and works in business because of those little business courses that he's taken that has kind of got him into that field. So it matters about, yes, your degree is important. Everyone cares about having a university or a college diploma. We're not necessarily focusing on degrees. Look for what they look at the qualification side of the job. See what they're looking for and see how you can match. Do you match? Do you cover what they're asking for? If yes, apply. And if not, if you want to apply, go ahead. Of course, I'm not going to say don't apply, but it's just you want to kind of get more chances of getting a job. So yeah, definitely a lot of companies don't look for a specific engineering degree, but they say just a Bachelor of Engineering, for instance, or they say a computer science diploma or something like that, and above. So they're not really specific, but if you have the courses, that really does take you a long way.
Awesome. So let's steer the conversation more into the women in tech space then. Could you tell us a little bit more about your work in the women in IT space?
Absolutely. This started off by one of our greatest professionals in the government, and she kind of approached me and she was wondering, how can we fix this gap between having a huge difference between the amount of women and men in IT? And we've noticed that. I mean, I've noticed that specifically coming from the private sector and working in the public sector. I did notice there's still a gap, and we're unsure as to how we can kind of fix that and kind of have a 50-50 ratio of women and men. And at the same time, how could we address and make women kind of feel more comfortable working in a more male-dominated environment? At the same time, how can we increase their passion for what they do? So coming up with that, we just had to kind of have a business case, right? Sell the idea of why are we planning to do this? What is our end goal? How is this going to help the future women? How is this going to help with diversity? I mean, right now, diversity is a huge topic, right, out there about how we're looking to include anybody who identifies themselves as men and women. And we just want anybody kind of to be an equal, right? So kind of getting involved with that was pretty easy. And we were so lucky because we had such a strong support system, especially from our upper management, and our vice president was very supportive. And kind of that really pushed us forward to create this network where we allow women to come and hear other women, such as vice presidents from other departments who made it that far, and talk about their career path, talk about their lessons learned, talk about what have they struggled with, and how they've used that struggle to make it this far, right? So it's really based on inspiring other women. It's based on encouraging women and mainly recruiting women. So we look forward to recruiting women from postgraduates or undergrads who want to do co-op and who want to work in our department. So yeah, it's about really increasing that passion. And we've been so happy. We've been hearing a lot of positive feedback. And again, what's so important was having the male dominated field actually support us. So all the men were actually very supportive to this whole initiative as well. So yeah, I went on and on, but I love it. So I can talk for an hour about this.
It's incredible to hear about all the support and all the impact that you're making. So what would you say is your fuel for that drive and the passion for creating that change?
Experience and feeling like I don't fit. One of my jobs in my past, I felt that, and I felt being the only lady in the team was very difficult. Being the youngest in the team was very difficult. And you only get that thrive when you see others or yourself going through a struggle. So that was where I was like, whatever job I'm going to end up with later or next, I'm going to work on finding an initiative. I'm going to work on doing whatever so I don't make others feel the same way, because every woman deserves to feel as equal and every woman deserves to feel as smart and as valued. And that's how it started. And that fuel kind of what kept me going and what allowed me kind of to speak and do a lot of leadership talks today about it.
Awesome. So what are some of the major barriers, would you say, that women face in this field?
Major barriers, I would say a lot of women don't speak up. They're afraid to speak up. They have no confidence sometimes, unfortunately. And in my opinion, are the biggest barriers, because once those barriers are overcome, they can accomplish anything. Have the confidence and be able to speak up. If you think something is wrong, then say it and speak up. If you think something's right, explain why you think it's right. Don't only assume, maybe they're right, I'm wrong, I shouldn't say anything. That's not how it works. Sometimes, majority of the times, actually, you're right. So we underestimate our intelligence, we underestimate how good we can be in a certain job and in a certain environment. And those are the two biggest barriers that I've seen throughout my career and in myself that I've personally overcome as well. So I would say those two.
Yeah. So would you say there's anything that would be good for young women to prepare or to do, at a younger age, as they're preparing to head into the tech field?
There's a couple things I would like to mention. First of all is, again, as I mentioned before, have confidence in yourself, believe in yourself, seek opportunities, especially if they feel like they're outside your comfort zone. Just go for it. You need to push yourself beyond your comfort zone to know what it's like, to know where you fit, or else you'd be stuck in this bubble. Get out of this bubble. You're smart, you're intelligent, you got everything. So go for it and don't let little things stop you. When something makes you feel nervous or when you're scared, push your way through it. I've stopped myself and I regretted it because I lost so many great opportunities because of that. You'll be so proud of yourself when you overcome these little challenges. So push your way through them, because you'd be so happy by the end of it. And I promise you, it will never be a bad outcome. If it is, it's always a positive lesson, because it'll kind of push you to do better the next time around, and don't give up. And lastly, find what you're passionate about. Find that. Even if it takes you switching from one job to the other, just find it. The moment you find it, you will go far and beyond anyone can imagine. So again, I'm a professional engineer, originally an engineer, and I work in IT. And because I was able to find out what I'm passionate about. So go for that. Consider different career opportunities. Don't be afraid to switch. Obviously, I'm not saying switch every 2 months. That's bad. I'm saying take your time, as in a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, and then switch, figure out what you're interested in and go from there.
Incredible. So you spoke about kind of pushing yourself out of your comfort zones. Do you have any tips or tricks or suggestions for how, as a young woman, you can put yourself out there to experience different types of jobs, different types of opportunities?
Yeah, so stepping out of your comfort zone. An example, I normally don't do this. Oh my God, I'm so terrified of cameras usually, and I hate public speaking, but you know what? I gotta step out of my comfort zone, because how would I know what I'm good at? I'm not even sure if I'm really good at this either. But again, I'm having my confidence and I'm showing that this is the biggest example of what I'm trying to say. To answer your question, to step out of your comfort zone and to look for different jobs, keep your options open. When you apply, do not underestimate your abilities. Apply. What's the worst that's going to happen? Get rejected? That's okay. I personally got rejected several times, and I'm sure others have, and other CEOs have, right? We have so many CEOs that talk about how they probably never got accepted into jobs and now they own companies. So what does that tell you? It's really, do not let rejection or anything close to rejection define your future. You have the ability to make it far and just believe in yourself. If it's something that requires, say, a lot of customer service, a lot of sales, and you feel a little shy, try it out. What's the worst that's going to happen? You can always leave the job and apply to another place. But again, you got to push yourself because you never know when is it going to suddenly click and be like, I wish I've done this. It's better to do that at a younger age than to do it later in life, because you have the ability to learn and grasp things and adapt. Whereas things perhaps later in life, when you're more concentrated in a specific field of work, it might be a little hard. So do it while you can is my advice for us now, since you're planning to step out of your comfort zone.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. We've spoken a lot about job and job searching. Now, I know this is a little bit off script, but would you have any advice just in general for young women who are applying for jobs for the first time?
There's a lot of new grad jobs out there, a lot of companies that kind of look to hire just specifically new grads. If you have co-op, that's a huge plus because that counts as experience. So kind of go in with experience. So they'd rather you, sometimes, not all the times, they'd rather you over, say, someone with no experience. But because I personally never had co-op and I still got a job. So it doesn't limit you. But I'm just saying sometimes they would rather that. So if you have that, that's great. Kind of use your undergrad as the key through and your project kind of thing. So the courses you've taken, if you've done software, look at the courses that you've taken, kind of focus on that in your resume, talk about that, and see how that applies to your job that you're looking to get into. Are they looking for the same coding experience? Are they looking for the same project experience? And kind of work your way through that. The same thing for civil and mechanical. I have a little knowledge on that side, but kind of like look at your project, look at the courses and kind of talk about that. How did you do in those courses? Talk about your difficulties, your challenges, because that kind of shows growth, right? That you've realized what you went through and this is how you're planning to overcome that. And this is how you have overcome it. And that kind of shows your employer, you know what, I like this person, they're a problem solver, they're able to know what went wrong and how to fix it. And this applies to a lot of the jobs.
Awesome. Looking back to kind of the women in tech space, do you know of any programs, especially for high school or middle school students, that you would recommend girls especially to take part of?
Absolutely. There was one I was involved in, and it's Technovation. And Technovation will probably love me for saying this. Technovation is awesome. Technovation is about teaching high school students or girls at a specific age how to code, how to create these apps, how to create apps to help make a difference in your society, right? They're aimed at making, for instance, building an app for high school students who don't know, who can't afford having lunch, for instance, and they sign up for it and you get lunch delivered to your locker, for instance, right? I'm just giving an example. You see how those little things make a difference? So what I love about Technovation is that they teach coding, they teach how to create app, they teach the business, right? How would you sell that app? They teach the ideas and they teach how to make a difference. So those little programs that are out there, and this is just one program out of so many other programs, definitely highly encourage students to be more involved in them. And IEEE does a lot of activities, right, with high school and university, specifically university, where they kind of teach and they kind of get more students involved to get them more interested in that specific field of study.
How exactly can, as a high school student or as a middle school student, can these girls find news about these opportunities?
So really, it's about your location. Technovation is pretty global. I'm aware that most of the cities kind of spread the word through the high school and through the teachers, kind of they'll let the students know. But other than that, it's more about how does each organization plan to spread the word? I mean, now through technology, through any of the social media apps, all of a sudden, if you're not seeing it there, you're seeing it in the ads, right? Which is amazing. So we're getting more of the word out. but it's really through education. Does your school support it? Does your school approve of such programs? And if yes, that's amazing. That means they care about, having you learn about different fields and whatnot. At the same time, are you seeing those on social media? I know the word of mouth actually works too. Some students post and a lot of people hear about it. They're like, oh, what is this? I've never heard of it. And then suddenly the school knows about it. So I'd say social media, end of the day. The top and some of the strongest, especially that teens these days, like it's all about social media. So definitely that's how we can kind of spread the word more about it.
For sure. Now, in terms of actually going out and trying to make a difference, I know we have many young women who perhaps are involved with PTC or even just listen to this podcast who are very interested in making an impact in their space. Would you have any advice for them? How can they go about, getting started in trying to make a difference?
For me, it started by doing a lot of research. I started in high school. We have the Boys and Girls Club. And the Boys and Girls Club of Ottawa, where the city I'm from, is about really giving back to the community. You're working with a lot of underserved kids, and you're making a difference every day in their life. I started by doing little things like homework club, right? Doing a lot of helping them with the homework, helping them with the math, with the science. From there, I was like, wow. So now I went on to helping with the charity events for the Boys and Girls Club. Until today, I'm still a volunteer for the Boys and Girls Club. So that tells you how much I love that place. And I love being part of things that always gives back to the community, and you're making a difference in children's lives of all ages. And you're building generations, right? Generations who are interested in science and engineering. That's one. And then I went on to university and I decided to continue that path. So I helped out with Virtual Ventures, which is a kind of program, same thing for science and engineering. And I did experiments for kids every day, got them to feel so excited about science and engineering. And this is the age where they're like, okay, I like this. Normally it's not just 2 + 2 or boring stuff. There's actually cool stuff, right? So that's how you get them involved with that. That's another part. Then I went on in university again, and I wanted to help with the girls in coding. So we every Sunday would for an hour would kind of teach coding, get girls interested in high school about coding and what's so cool. Oh my God, I can build a cool app that tells me hello world, and that's how it would happen. And from there, it just kind of every day you're noticing the amount of women or girls going into tech has been increasing drastically. Not enough yet, but it has come a long way because of how can you kind of know where to volunteer, know where to give back, know where it's most impactful, and know that wherever you go, make sure you go into a place where when you walk out, you'll say, I made a difference and I feel content. And that's what really got me kind of to keep rolling from one organization to the other. And I mean, IEEE is incredible. Professional Engineers Ontario are incredible as well. We do a lot of great different activities for kids a young age, knowing that end of the day when I go home, I made someone smile, I made someone love science, I made someone kind of want to do engineering, and I made, who knows, maybe I met a future engineer, future scientist. This is how it starts, and this is how you should get involved.
Incredible, and that's so inspiring. What would be kind of one piece of advice you'd give to your younger self?
Do not underestimate your abilities. Do not listen to what society tells you. Look at your inner self and look at your abilities and focus on that. I think I would have made it a lot more further in life with my career had I followed that path, that advice. Know your strength and focus on that. Have that confidence. Don't let you being an engineer, being a female engineer with a whole bunch of male engineers, don't let that affect you. You're still as good. You still have the brains for it. You still can make it far. Have the confidence and always focus on stepping outside of your comfort zone. I know I said that enough, but it's really the highlight. Step out of your comfort zone for sure. Don't be limited because of he said, she said. Do it. Follow your intuition, follow it, and just you will make it far. So definitely this is something I would say to my younger self. Have the confidence and be unstoppable. Keep going. Never stop. And the biggest thing I would say, and this is so important, I cannot stress this enough. Do not be afraid of failure. I think we're so scared to fail. at all times. And failure is something that we don't talk about because we always talk about the good stuff and how we've made it here and how we've made it there, including myself right here, right? I'm talking about all the good stuff. But I failed before. I failed in a lot of stuff. Do I talk about it? No, but I think we should talk about it. We should talk about how we failed. We're not talking about courses failing, that's a different subject. We're talking about failing in different aspects. You got to talk about failure to know, to be so proud of yourself, because for each time you fail, you just don't look at that. You look at what are the good stuff that you got out of it, right? You need to look at the failure too, because that failure has allowed you to become the person you are today, which you should be so proud of. And look at that and tell people about it, because nobody's perfect and everyone would look at you as you're the most perfect person, but they need to know that you failed too, you know? So if you failed, that means they're okay because they failed too, right? We're all humans end of the day, and we really got to focus on it's okay to fail. We fail, we get up, we push harder. And that's how it's always been with me. And that's how it always should be with everybody else.
For sure. And that's really incredible insight. And thank you so much for that. Would you say that moving into kind of your day-to-day responsibilities as a project manager, kind of how do you deal with failure or mistakes?
I deal with failure in a whole different way now. I mean, before I would just get so upset and I would feel like this is it. And I would want to just get up and it took me a lot of practice. And it's not easy. You got to really practice that, you know what, I'm going to get up and I'm going to push harder and I'm going to try again and I'm going to push harder. We're not talking about failures out of school again. Not maybe it's failure from a job interview. Maybe it's a failure from trying to start an initiative and didn't work. End of the day, I am at a place where I couldn't be any happier. I'm just so happy and I'm here because it's all thanks to the failures, because I'm sure if I didn't fail, I would have had a miserable career path, for instance, right? So for me, the way I dealt with failure was kind of grief about it for a day. The next day, I get up and I think about how am I going to start planning my life, about how am I going to push harder. For me, it was about, this is why I failed. Lesson learned. I learned that and apply those lessons to my future, whatever I'm trying to do that I failed in. And believe it or not, you always do a lot more. When you push that step forward, when you go a little harder, you always kind of overcome your past failures. You just got, again, it comes back to training your mind, knowing that it's okay to fail. The moment we accept that it's okay to fail, the moment we can start progressing in life. Because no one talks about failures, we always feel like, oh my God, we're the only ones. You're not alone. We all failed, but we don't talk about it. So you need to kind of accept it and figure out a way of how to overcome it and just be like, that's okay. You know, I've done better than somebody else and they've done better and stuff better than me. And I failed in things that they passed and they failed things that I passed, you know. We're all different. We all have our strengths and weaknesses. And the moment you acknowledge that, the moment you would know where you'd fit better and how you can overcome that feeling of failure.
Awesome. So moving back kind of into your job as a project manager, what are your day-to-day kind of responsibilities?
So I'm just so honored to be working on kind of the security end of a country that has given me so much and I'm so grateful for. And I'm so happy for giving something back. And by working as a project manager and working as an IT professional, you're working in a cross-functional team environment where you're working with different designers, database admins, you're working with management, you're working with several different teams, and to help create and complete a project that would make a difference in the security end, right? You're making people more safe. So that's when I say I'm so happy, because it's not just my extracurriculars that I'm making a difference. I'm making a difference in my daily job. And I'm so happy because end of the day, I feel I made a step to safety. I made a difference somehow. So being a project manager, I am kind of working with different teams. I get to coordinate things. I get to plan a way forward and to create an end product.
On that topic, would you be able to go in a little more detail on what exactly the role of a project manager is?
Sure. A project manager is to go from starting a project, planning it, selling the idea of why it's important to have this project, working with different teams, creating a planning perspective of how you're planning, how are we going to plan this? How are we going to know if it's succeeded or not? What are the measures? And then actually going through the work, working with different people on and different aspects of the job, working with designers, working with admins, working with people who type down the communication side of it, and making sure the pieces of the puzzle fit in. And then controlling it, making sure we're accomplishing what we wanted, right? Sometimes you start with a project and you end with something completely different. That's not good. That's a mess. Back to failure, what we were talking about. But this is why you got to always have your work checked. It's project manager means taking the lead to control something from the very start to the very end, and creating that product or creating that little service at the end that you're feeling so content about, that I did this, not alone because everyone else did it, but you kind of controlled it. And thanks to everybody's help and contributions, it's something that does make a difference in the company and in the department and anywhere that you work in.
Awesome. So how did you first get into project management, kind of that transition from software into biomed into PM?
Oh, for me, it's funny because my career path was like different. Again, this is where I go back and say this is why I jumped. I didn't jump every year. I jumped every couple of years, but I went from testing to supporting to biomedical and project management, and then I got into IT project management. So working in testing and working in support in the software side or IT side in the private sector companies has allowed me to build that understanding of the different platforms of the IT and the software side. And then when I got into the biomedical company, I worked with a lot of project managers that at one point I had to act like a project manager when our project manager would not be there. And then I gained that experience and I worked in the project management department. That experience that I gained from the biomedical side, along with my IT software side, has allowed me to get my job that I'm in today, which is software IT project manager, which is a mix of everything that I've ever wanted. But it's because if I did not take those little steps to plan where I want to go, to try different things, to know if I really want to do electrical, or want to do software, or want to do biomedical, I would have not ended up with this full package, I'll say, that I'm in today.
Thank you so much. Yeah. So for the project manager role, then what are some things that students who might be interested in this could do to kind of prepare? Or what are some of the skills, or what are some of the characteristics or traits that project managers might need?
One of the main ones, I would say, communicating. Definitely. Are you good at communicating? If you're not, are you planning to be good at communicating? Are you working on something that, you feel project manager really, it's all about communication and being able to handle different aspects and being able to handle when something goes wrong and knowing how to problem solve, right? On the spot, you got to work really, really quick as a project manager. So kind of putting in, again, the puzzle. Remember I talked about different pieces and putting it all together to build a big picture? Really figuring out how can you communicate with different teams. How can you deal with problems that can occur? Sometimes there's conflicts that occur, right? Knowing how to deal with that, having the background for that project. So say it's a database project. Do you have a background in database? Have you worked with databases before? Do you know how they work? Do you know every aspect? Do you know the design? I'm not saying every detail, but at least when you're presented with something, do you know that this is what it should look like, right? So have that different background, as well as that communication background to get you to succeed in that field and actually be considered for that field for sure.
Awesome. For someone who would like to pursue more specifically in the IT sector, a PM job, do you feel like it's more important to have a business background or perhaps more of a tech background?
You see, if you asked me this a couple months ago, I'll be like, IT background for sure, not business. It's astonishing is I know someone who's a vice president who had a Bachelor of Business background and the vice president of an IT department. So it does not matter. It does not matter. Really, it's about your experience another day. Do you have the experience for it? Can you sell yourself again, right? I told you I went into the biomedical engineering job without really having any biomedical engineering experience. But do you have the experience to get into it in terms of the person who has a business background and is a vice president of an IT department? She had a lot of experience. She probably never used to do business, but it helped her somehow, because when she made it to the executive side, all the way up in the chain, she used her business background somehow to solve a lot of business problems. Really astonishing how we're becoming so diverse, even with our undergrads or whatever our degrees or diplomas are. We're willing to accept things because even though we're different, we can always learn from it, and that person can always contribute something more than what a technical person may contribute, and vice versa. So yeah, I hope I answered it. But if you asked me a couple months ago, I'd be like, oh my God, IT for sure. Don't even think about it. Or tech background. But now I think experience speaks a lot more.
That's great to hear. Okay. So we often hear the terms kind of project manager, program manager versus product manager thrown around. I'm not sure if you're comfortable kind of speaking on the differences between the three.
So usually there's like a portfolio manager, and then there's a program manager, and there's a project manager. So the project manager is like charge of project, and then you have the program manager who's in charge of multiple projects. So we're not talking about, so the project manager really does detailed work, step by step, following up with everybody, has a technical background, has a communication background, has everything, runs the show for one project or multiple. And then you have someone who controls numerous amounts of projects, not so much into detail like a project manager. And then you have a portfolio where everything kind of, it's like a little chain. If you look at it, it's like a little pyramid, and they all make their way up. And then somehow, end of the day, your goals and everything has to be all aligned. So that's why this is usually how it works in a high level explanation.
For sure. Thank you so much for that. All right, so kind of shifting the conversation back into your job, what would you say that the most rewarding part of your job is? I know you already touched upon kind of the impact side of things, but did you have anything to add maybe?
I can talk for an hour with this too. The most rewarding part is I work, as I mentioned, I'm giving back to a country that's given me so much. Being part of the public sector is the best, it's the most rewarding thing I've done. I love the private sector too. I learned so much from the private, but being in the public, I'm giving back to a country that's given me a lot. I'm working on a security of the borders. That's all. That shows me that I'm doing something huge, right? I'm being involved in different projects, and I'm learning about all those different things that really help to shape the person I am today. My reward, end of the day, is knowing that every day that I do the work that I'm doing, it's not just affecting a specific aspect, but it's affecting a whole country. So that itself is rewarding, keeping people safe, the public safe, and assuring that you're working towards that, which itself is like a huge difference making and a huge reward for me personally.
Very incredible. It sounds amazing, the work that you've been doing. Just in general, you've touched a lot about kind of working in the private sector versus the public sector. What would you say would be the main difference between the two?
You know, I was really hoping someone would ask me this. So, because this question always comes up, and I love it because I get to talk about it. And I would love to say that the difference is humongous. I've worked in the private for a couple of years. And the private, it's very fast paced. You learn so much. You got to grasp so much. There's a lot of different opportunities to move around. It's easier to move around, I'd say. Not even from company to the other, but also from like different departments within the same company. There could be missing people on a specific team, and you already know the product, so you jump in from testing to supporting, from like I don't know what to designing if you have the background. So that really helps. You get to learn a lot of different things, and it's very fast paced and a lot of different opportunities for sure. In the public, whatever you're doing, you're giving something back to the government, to the country. You also have a lot of opportunities. Things may not be a lot of fast pace as the private, because the private's more business based, right? You're working to make the dollar for sure, or whatever currency. But end of the day, it's the company is doing well, you'll remain. If the company is not doing well, I don't know what to say. It's a risk, but definitely you'll learn so much. In the public, they kind of work, they help you, they send you off to training, they make sure they focus on their employees, they make sure they know that that they're valued, they get you through training, they get you kind of to work on whatever you want, right? To make sure you enjoy working there and to get that job within the government that kind of fits what you're looking for. So they really invest in their employees, and the private does too. But again, we're looking at total different paces, total different systems. One you're giving back to the country, the other one you're giving back to the CEO, right? End of the day. I learned so much from the private. I always tell a lot of people, a lot of students actually, when they graduate, try the private because they're always so eager to learn. They just want to do a lot of, I want to do a lot of coding. I want to do a lot of this. And the private gets you that. The private kind of gets you like to grind and to learn a lot. And it's incredible because that what you learn there, you kind of get to apply it to all the other future jobs. But definitely great difference. I'd say nothing concerning, but a lot of people would ask if I'd ever go back to the private. I don't know. I'm very happy with where I am right now. I don't plan to, but if I do, I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. I'll go back to the super fast pace. But I know end of the day, because I'm a person who's so focused on giving back, I know end of the day, my job, what I'm doing is I'm giving back to my country and keeping people safe. So that's, again, it's what you look for in terms of what do you value more, and that's where you see yourself fit in more.
For sure. So then for a student, perhaps especially for female students who are looking to head into the industry for the first time, you touched upon it a little bit already, but would you recommend them to perhaps look for jobs in the private or the public sector?
So it depends what they look for. Are they looking to just get a job, to learn really quick a whole bunch of stuff and then move on to another job because they're kind of referring back to moving different places to know what you want? Definitely private. Public is, are you looking to focus on having a job that kind of you would see the outcome in and feel good because you're doing something in terms of protecting the public or whatnot? So it's different, it's totally different. And a lot of people tell me, they're like, oh, there's more money in the private, less money in the public. And I'm like, this is a myth. This is not true. They're both equal. Yes, the private does give you bonuses, which a lot of students are like, oh my God, I want to get bonus. I mean, who would say no to like a couple of thousands of dollars bonuses, right? But again, both are equal, both give money. It's nobody pays more than the other, but definitely moving around in the private is a lot easier. Being in a very fast-paced environment where you learn a lot definitely happens in the private. My advice is know what you want, figure out what you want, and sometimes that job can be in the public and sometimes it can be in private, and try it out. If you don't like the private, go in the public. If you don't like the public, go back to the private. You got to try to know. I can't specifically tell someone, oh, just go to the public because I'm so biased. I like the public and I'm a fan. I'm a huge fan. I can't say that. I always say I've done both, and that's how I figured it out, and that's how I want you to do it. So whatever job opportunity you get, jump on it, take it, private or public, take it and learn from it. And if it gets too comfortable, too boring, you're learning nothing, that's when you should leave immediately, and look for something else. I'm not saying leave and don't be jobless. Leave when you get another opportunity for sure. I'm seeing you laugh and she's on mute, everybody, just letting you know.
Thank you so much for that. Yeah. Okay, so I guess that concludes all the prepared questions we have, including all the student questions that were sent in. Thank you so much. Just all in all, do you have perhaps a final piece of advice or anything else that you'd like to add for our student listeners?
You guys are doing great. I'm sure the fact that you're listening to this does tell me that you want to learn, you want to know, you want to make it far. You guys have the passion. You girls have the passion. And just keep going. Don't let anyone stop you. You know what you want. If you don't, I didn't know what I wanted, and that's okay. I found out later what I wanted. Have the courage to try different things. Step out of your comfort zone. Keep your head up high. Be confident. That's the key. You can do it, and just don't let anybody else tell you otherwise. Keep pushing, and you'll make it far. And if you do or you don't, please reach out to me. I would love to hear all about your great stories. And if you need any advice, feel free to reach out to me for sure. But keep pushing and keep your head up high, because if you've made it this far, you'll make it further. So keep going.
Thank you so much for those inspiring words. And with that, that concludes our episode today. Thank you once again so much for all your amazing and incredible experiences and insight that you've shared. I'm sure everyone appreciates it a lot. So thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me. And I'm wishing everybody who's listening to this the best of luck in their school, in their careers, in their lives. And I truly look forward to hearing all about your inspiring stories and just the best of luck to all of you.
Thanks so much for tuning in and having us be a part of your journey to code your future.
Make sure to follow us on our social media to stay in the loop and for a chance to have your questions answered in our next episode. See you then.